Do I think that Polkadot could hypothetically be a big narrative, let's say during a fully fledged type of altcoin season? I don't see why not, even though nothing I say is financial advice. And if I take a look at its native token called DOT, I'm totally aware of the fact that it's not doing good as of right now, but I'm still believing in the idea of $50 maybe during a fully fledged type of hypothetical altcoin season. But then at the same time, I feel like a major catalyst that could maybe allow for that to happen is what's going on with Polkadot as of right now. And what is going on with Polkadot? Take a look at decentralized AI. I think this could hypothetically be something very amazing because we see some projects out there focused on centralized AI, but I think decentralized AI really is fantastic. I mean, take a look at, for instance, right? If we just take a look at the AI market, generally speaking, it is predicted to reach nearly $2 trillion by 2030, according to Grandview Research. So that's very massive. And many of these decentralized AI projects I've seen, they're starting to build on Polkadot. And why not? I think Polkadot is very amazing, at least in my opinion. I'm not telling anyone to buy DOT, by the way, but then the way you take a look at Polkadot is that pretty much within the space that it's in, I think it's arguably number one. Let me explain why. Polkadot is focused on interoperability. And when it comes to these projects that are focused on interoperability, how much can we really name? Sure, there's some out there, I'm totally aware of that, but then many people out there can pretty much name Polkadot and Axelar, that's it. But then Axelar is a way smaller project than Polkadot, so then if we think about it, who is number one in this interoperability space? Arguably, I would say it's Polkadot. And why is having interoperability such an amazing thing? Because I think it's crucial for the future growth of the blockchain space overall. Let me explain why. Because we take a look at many blockchains out there, many networks. Many of them are good, in my opinion, and also many of them I don't think are not so good. But then here's the thing. I think without interoperability, we can't really see the space develop in the way that we might want it to see because imagine, right? We take a look at Bitcoin and Ethereum. Because they are independent of one another, they cannot freely send data and value to each other. As a result, what happens? They lack something called interoperability, arguably. And what steps in and saves the day? That's something like Polkadot. Now, Bitcoin and Ethereum, I mean, that's not the only example. I mean, there's a bunch out there, but it's just something I want to use because, of course, Bitcoin and Ethereum is very popular. But I think you get the point here. I mean, just imagine, right? If let's say I am using like AT&T, and then I'm calling my friend who's using T-Mobile, and then imagine because we're using a different carrier, I can't call my friend. Wouldn't that be like a disadvantage? Now, of course, that problem doesn't exist, but I'm saying, imagine if it did. Now, because the blockchain technology space, I think, still has a ways to go, we kind of still see this problem, right? Where we see this network out there or this blockchain or whatever, they can't freely send data and value to each other. They lack interoperability. We see a lot of those cases. So then I think that Polkadot is actually entering at the right time. Maybe it was a little bit too ahead of its time because some people would argue that, hey, you know what, when Polkadot launched, it's not like it necessarily needed it at that time. But then you know what? I don't mind because, of course, ever since Polkadot launched, I would arguably say that the blockchain technology space is doing, I think, hypothetically better, at least in my perspective. So I think, especially moving forward, as there are more blockchains, as there are more networks that pop up, could Polkadot potentially be of use to them? Arguably, maybe, who knows, but I do like it because I think Polkadot is not dependent on the hype. You know what I mean? It's kind of dependent on utility. Because I think naturally, as a lot of these projects do pop up, a lot of them may want to be interoperable, right? So then something like Polkadot is right there. I'm not saying they're all going to choose Polkadot, but this is just kind of like the mindset that I'm in. Now, besides that point, the cherry on top when it comes to Polkadot for me is the fact that there is something called Kusama. Now, what is Kusama? Kusama is a canary network to Polkadot. Some people may be thinking, okay, what is a canary network? Now, let me explain quite simply. New projects that wish to launch on Polkadot, they're going to typically launch on Kusama first. The reason being is because it's easier to make changes on and it's typically cheaper to rent building space. So a lot of these projects, they want to start off on Kusama first, and then after they test out the project under real economic conditions, so to speak, eventually later on they move on to Polkadot. Now, granted, not every project has to do this because, of course, there is Moonriver, which I'm very bullish on, by the way, but even besides that, however, a lot of these projects that I do see, eventually they do move on later to, Polkadot. And that, I think, is a good funneling system to Polkadot because it's kind of like a free trial at a gym. Not really, but this is just kind of the analogy. It's a kind of like a test drive, you know? Let's say I go to a gym, free trial, I like it, maybe I become a member, test drive a car, I like it, maybe I buy it, right? Or lease it or whatever the case may be, but I'm just saying. That's kind of like Kusama a little bit. It's kind of like a test drive or a free trial at a gym. So then the way I view it is that I like the Polkadot kind of like vibe, if that makes sense. I get it, Polkadot is not a small project, but then really it's not kind of like a Bitcoin status. Think about this, right? Let's say Bitcoin, despite the pullback, let's say it goes to 300 grand for whatever reason. Let's say it does that, that's slightly less than a 3x from here. Dot going to the price of $50 around a 14x from here. Not saying it can happen, but then again, what would be easier to do a 3x, hypothetically, let's say, Dot or Bitcoin? That's the question I ask myself. Bitcoin, in order to do a 3x, man, the market cap would have to be so massive. Not saying that it can't hypothetically do it, but then again, DOT is an altcoin, right? It doesn't need that much volume to really make it move, like, let's say, a 3x from where it is as of right now. Granted, even though it's not a microcap, but I'm just saying, the market cap is not like so massive, to the point where a 3x feels a little bit like questionable, maybe. But then this is my perspective. Now, at the price of $50, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $80 billion. I'm totally aware that this may sound kind of like, what am I even talking about? Because, of course, the altcoin space isn't doing the best. But then imagine if we saw a lot of hype, right? Imagine if the markets did recover. Would this be too crazy? I mean, Dogecoin reached over $80 billion in market cap back in 2021, and that was years ago. And here's the thing. People like to say that if the factors as of right now are more bullish than back in 2021, which arguably I would kind of agree with that because there's over 600 million crypto owners right now, according to Crypto.com research. Back then in 2021, during the peak of that bull run, around 300 million crypto owners. Take a look at the hype for the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF, the number of institutional investors, the amount of enterprise adoption. Some people like to ask that given all those factors, why aren't altcoins kind of doing what they did back in 2021, even despite it being more bullish in terms of the conditions when compared to back then? Now, my response is this. It's because no matter how bullish, the altcoin space or just kind of the crypto space overall, no matter how bullish that is, if the markets in general aren't allowing for that to happen, I think arguably it would not allow for altcoins to really show maybe what they could very well do. So then it's just a waiting game for me. Some of my friends out there, they say, oh, it's so draining to look at the portfolio. Then my response is, why look at the portfolio, right? I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but then my perspective is that if something is emotionally draining for me, why keep at that, right? Like, it makes no sense to me. Like, for instance, if let's say my friend, every time he looked at his portfolio, he didn't feel good and all this type of stuff, then why look at it? I mean, there's other things to do in theory. Like, for instance, I don't know, I would just exercise or whatnot, right? Or like, watch a movie. I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of activities to do, walk in the park. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. But I'm just saying, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but then this is just kind of like my perspective. And personally speaking, I can only control what I can control. And that's dollar cost averaging. So anytime an income, acquiring, holding, and just waiting, literally that's it. I mean, beyond that, I can't do anything else. So that's what I'm going to do. And again, we take a look at historically speaking, altcoins usually as a worst case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. Sure, we're over a year removed from the last Bitcoin halving event, but we're not 18 months removed. So maybe even if, let's say, the market conditions were so good right now, maybe, again, altcoins are not supposed to peak as a worst case scenario, hypothetically anyways. So why would I just give up? I'm not going to give up. I'm going to still stay patient because I treat this like a marathon. It's not a sprint for me. I'm not a day trader. I don't use leverage. I don't swing trade. I don't do any of that type of stuff. What I do is just I treat this like a marathon and I just acquire however much I can, whenever I can, on a consistent basis. That's it. I can't control when things go up or down. I can't do that. I can only believe in the projects which interest me, and that's it. Beyond that, I can't do anything else. So I want to stay patient, but $50 wouldn't surprise me whatsoever when it comes to DOT. If, let's say, we do see a fully fledged type of altcoin season, even if that does happen, who knows, only time will tell, but I'm staying patient. And feel free to subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, I'd greatly appreciate it. It's only the captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm on peace. Bye.